Chris Lee of Southeastern14.com here to go over SEC baseball power rankings after 1 week in a play. Let's start at the bottom. Missouri has taken 2 of 3 against Nicholls State on the road. Actually, they're playing another game Monday. Doesn't really change much for me. Good to see Missouri get some wins after a year where the Tigers couldn't beat much of anybody. But anyway, the bats have improved a little bit, but let's see them play somebody a little tougher before we pass much judgment. Next, I've got Alabama, which swept Xavier, and is probably a little closer than I would have wanted it to be. Alabama hit pretty consistently with its veteran guys. Pitching still a question, I think, heading forward for Alabama. Next is Kentucky at 12. Actually, Kentucky got a really good series win at Jacksonville State. That's a decent OVC program that I think went to the NCAA tournament a year ago and is supposed to be at the top this year. The pitching, Cole Stupp was kind of disappointing, but Kentucky's got some depths of arms. And anyway, nice start for the Cats. I don't bump them up too much because I try not to change too much of my rankings from what I thought preseason until I get a great reason. But anyway, liked what Kentucky did over the weekend. Auburn may have boosted its stock in my eyes more than any team over the weekend. The Tigers took 2 of 3 in Arlington from Big 12 teams, the big one beating a ranked Texas Tech team. Auburn's pitching was unexpectedly really good this weekend, and that's something to watch going forward. Next, I've got Texas A&M, which I had ahead of Auburn preseason. The Aggies will stay there. The sweep of Fordham was kind of a non-event, but let's keep in mind the Aggies last year under Rob Childress lost their opening series to Xavier. This year under Jim Schlossnagle, they win all 3, so good start for them. Wasn't an overwhelming sweep. Don't read too much into it, but they took care of business. Next is South Carolina, which won 2 or 3 against Greensboro, but my goodness, needed to do it in dramatic fashion. Came down from 7-1 in the 9th inning on Sunday. The bats were a little better for Carolina. The arms weren't maybe quite as good as I'd hoped. Again, you would have hoped Carolina could have swept and taken care of business in a better way, but it's just 1 week, and they did 2 or 3, so there's that. Florida lost 2 of 3 to Liberty in Gainesville. Florida threw a lot of freshman arms and looked pretty good at times. The bats were okay, but not great. You would have liked to see the Gators take a step up there. Losing a series to Liberty is not bad. That's a team that finished second in the Knoxville Regional a year ago, but still, Florida came into the season ranked number 10, and I think you have to ding them a little bit for losing 2 of 3 at home in that one. Now, the other team that I think really boosted its stock in my eyes over the weekend was Tennessee. I didn't know how the Vols would pitch without their top 2 starters. Didn't know how they'd hit with a lot of new names in the lineup, and my goodness, the Vols really answered that in resounding fashion. It was Georgia Southern, which is a pretty good Sun Belt program. Tennessee wins that one 33-3 on the whole. Again, I'm not going to put too much stock in it yet until we see the Vols maybe play some ranked teams. You've seen Tennessee jump off the fast starts before. I think they're legit. That was a really impressive weekend for the Vols on the whole. We'll see if they can move up. I think if they look like that again, there's a good chance they will. Number 6, I've got Georgia, which didn't blow me away over the weekend. Again, sweeping Albany. Hitting and pitching weren't quite what I'd hoped, but they weren't bad either. Georgia took care of business, swept the series. For now, they're ahead of Tennessee. But, boy, that could change if the teams play the way they did both this weekend. 5th, I've got Mississippi State, which probably had the most disappointing series of anybody in the SEC over the weekend. On Friday night, State couldn't hit. Got 1 hit and got shut out by Long Beach State, which is ranked. And then the next night, the pitching didn't show up. Casey Hunt was awful, and State got both raced in that game. Turned the tables on Sunday, but on the whole, just really wasn't the weekend that State wanted coming off that national championship year a year ago. Anxious to see how State plays going forward. I think they'll be fine, and I've left them at 5 for now. At 4, I've got LSU. And my goodness, I know it was Maine, but 51 runs in 24 innings because, remember, LSU was home and didn't bat in the bottom of the half. That's impressive against anybody. We have talked about their lineup. LSU's got 4, in my opinion, first-team All-SEC players in that lineup and some good ones beside it. Some of the transfers hit over the weekend. LSU just, in terms of offense, potentially the best team in the country. Number 3, you got Vandy, which lost 2 of 3 to Oklahoma State at home. That series could have gone either way. I think the series composite was 11 runs apiece for each. Vandy's pitching was a little bit of a question coming in. The Commodores threw pretty well. The bats were an issue in the middle of the order. Vandy couldn't get the big hit from there most of the weekend, but the Commodores didn't look their best, but showed me enough to think they're going to be good. And Oklahoma State wouldn't surprise me if at some point that team ends up number 1. I think it's that good. Number 2, I've got Arkansas, which I wasn't thrilled with the Razorbacks' performance, but I'll leave them at 2 based on winning 2 of 3. They lost the Friday night game to Illinois State. The bats didn't really come alive. I think they hit 246 for the weekend. But we're going to give Arkansas the benefit of some doubt. It was the number 2 team in the country coming into the weekend, and we'll leave them there. Number 1, I've got Ole Miss. And I don't know that Ole Miss is going to win the West, but right now I think I like that team better than anybody in the country, at least in the SEC, that is. Texas might have something to say. But Ole Miss, the lineup right there with LSU, is just one of the best ones that I've seen in this conference. The pitching was pretty good over the weekend. I don't know what you make of Charleston Southern, but I've kind of been high on the Rebels the more that I've thought about their team. Ole Miss took care of business. I think it's going to be a really good team going forward, and how those arms do, I think, is going to determine Ole Miss's altitude, but I think they've got a shot because there's some talent. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. We're going to have lots of SEC baseball content coming this season.